Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR-154. We're here on Berlin and we're in the Tier 6 French Heavy Tank, the ARL-44. Now those of you who followed me on stream or platooned with me know I've got a bit of a structure to how I go in and play World of Tanks, and it's based on what is the competitive scene of the day. If I'm placing top 5 by experience, I'll go up a tier. If I'm placing bottom 5, I'll go down a tier, and if I'm placing in the middle, then that's kind of where I need to be for the competitive scene at the time. Now, unfortunately, I can end up with a few consecutive disasters, and I end up in mid or lower tiers. In which case, that is when I use the opportunity to polish the proverbial turds. These are the tanks that I end up having the lowest win rates in, and ARL-44 is such an example. I think I'm on about 42% win rate with ARL-44 at the moment. So I've been able to take the opportunity here to get out the old turd polishing rag and see what we can do. Now, a little bit about the ARL-44. Its main attraction is its 90mm main armament. It delivers 240 hit points per shot, but does so with quite good penetration for tier. You get 212mm of penetration on the standard AP, which is just fantastic. But the jewel in the crown is with the APCR with 256mm of penetration. That's like there's tier 8s that don't get 256mm of penetration. So you've got a tier 6 heavy that at least its gun can remain relevant in doing consistent damage to higher tiered opponents, even in +2 matchmaking. The trick, however, is hitting the enemy in the first place. Your base dispersion is 0.36 meters per 100 meters, and it takes about 3.5 seconds to aim. Your dynamic dispersion characteristics are also pretty well the worst in show against most of its contemporaries. Of course, I'm not including the KB2 in that gun handling equation. You can get shot through the face quite easily by same tiered vehicles. The turret armor is not great, and even angling the turret won't help you because you've only got 30mm of armor on the side of the turret. The hull armor is a slightly different story, but you do have to be careful how it's used. I will pause this for a moment just to demonstrate. You can poke quite effectively with the frontal armor on this vehicle, but if the enemy's aware of your weak points, you are going to have a bad day, because this plate here, at least rear of the prow here, actually forms part of the hitbox. That does a couple of things. One, the enemy can shoot you in that hitbox, or they might shoot you in your frontal plate, and you'll get a ricochet, and it might bounce off and it will hit the tracks and immobilize you, or it'll bounce off, it'll hit you through the hitbox and then through the tracks and immobilize you, and you down hit points as well. So that can be a little bit problematic, but back to the game. So lots of penetration, but the armor you need to be a little bit careful with. So we're engaging 3 enemy heavy tanks, trying to lure them into a bit of a kill box between 4 of our heavy tanks. The KV-85, for reasons known only to itself, has decided to charge off. Here's another case of awkward armor profiles. The Tiger P. We actually featured a replay of this in our last episode of World of Tanks with PR-154. Now its main redeeming feature is the 200mm thick upper frontal plate on the vehicle, but around here is where it stops. Through here, the plate starts to normalize, and we can see the plate behind the tracks, thanks to our handy advanced armor penetration indicator, will tell us we'll be able to punch it through the track there, absolutely no problem at all. And we end up hitting it for 284 hit points. That's a bit of a high roll, and we certainly won't complain about that. But that's the sort of magic shot that you want to be able to do. One that both causes damage and immobilizes the enemy. And you're able to keep those tracks locked down. You could be potentially collecting assist damage from your teammates that are landing shots on them. But more importantly, you know exactly where they are and you can come back for another hit. We could have kept that trade up were it not for the ONE getting involved, given that the Tiger P is probably only running a 75mm weapon. It was only landing 135 hit point hits on us. But things not looking up for us. It's now a 3 versus 2 situation, and the ONE knocks out our friendly ONE. The enemy heavy tanks didn't, for whatever reason, didn't capitalize on that situation and press in. So we're going to just get the hell out of there. Best thing for us to do is to try to level the scores as quickly as possible, take enemy guns out of the game so that they're not causing return damage to us, and we knock out the Tiger P as a first port of call. Our friendly Tiger is in the fray, but we happened to see earlier that the enemy OI, the tier 6, had also taken some damage. So again, focusing on taking enemy guns out of the game, we knocked the OI out that was on its last 60 hit points. Unfortunately, in the process, the ONE has been able to knock out our Tiger, but we're able to put a fairly meaty hit into admittedly quite a low roll, actually. In fact, that was the lowest of the low rolls at 180 hit points from a 240 hit point base. This does get a little bit tense, however. We are one-shottable to each other, but fortunately we're able to get the first hit in and knock out the ONE first. The T50-2 had been able to get a sneaky shot in on us, and just left us on a little over 300 hit points. So our survivability for the remainder of this battle could be quite questionable. We did have a tier 6 light tank, the 5916, that was capturing the base. Unfortunately, a very eagle-eyed tank destroyer had been able to knock them out. So at this point, it's anyone's game. Now, we need to remember this is old Berlin, and I'm not sure how you feel about New Berlin. I saw a QB video that he certainly had his thoughts about New Berlin. I quite liked Old Berlin. I thought it had something for everybody, but unfortunately it was a map design that could become quite campy. And I guess this battle in particular is a little bit of evidence of that, where just the heavily foliated southern end of the map, with high counts of tank destroyers either side, can make the game fairly uneventful. This position should be the focal point of the map at this point in time. We've got medium tanks, we've got heavy tanks, we've got everyone that's sort of moved up to try to take this position. Unfortunately, the enemy SPGs were on the ball, and we've eaten basically lost all of our hit points to an incoming shell from an S51. But in the confusion, we've had at least one of our friendly medium tanks, the T-34-85, has been able to push in and leave the T-52 on a very weak hit point position. Unfortunately, wasn't reloaded or fluffed the shot there. They weren't quite able to take the killing blow on the T-52, but fortunately the Tier 7 tank, the T-43, is able to push in and knock the T-52 out. This leaves us in a desperate fight for control of the center. We've got the enemy Super Hellcat that's pushed in, and it has a bit of a hit point advantage over the T-34-85. Could potentially one-shot the T-34-85, so they have to be a little bit careful here. The T-43, not so much. That's still going to take 2 shells from the Super Hellcat to knock out. But unfortunately, a little bit of luck from the Super Hellcat, a little bit of careless angling from the T-34-85, and now it's locked in place. But that extra shot from the Super Hellcat is costing it dearly. Every shot that it puts into the T-34-85 for no damage gives our T-43 an opportunity to poke forward and engage the Super Hellcat. In fact, it looks like our friendly Super Hellcat has also been able to get a flanking shot on the enemy Shellcat and knock it out. Barring any nasty surprises, we might actually have this at this point in time. We've got 2 medium tanks and a turreted tank destroyer all capping the circle. And I guess that's possibly one of the things that the rework of the Berlin map was trying to get around. This tendency for the field part of the map to become this this campsite, and just encouraging a lot more dynamic play, particularly through the JK lines. I mean, these are all very low hit point vehicles. What have we got? T-34-85, Super Hellcat, and T-43. Between them, less than 450 hit points. There was some real opportunities for the enemy to come in and assault this position, but by all accounts, it appears they didn't want to. So that's a win for us. Granted, a win by cap out, but I operate on the philosophy that a win's a win. Certainly when I'm chasing them, to bolster a 42% win rate on one of my turds. Let's take a look at the results. So I was quite happy with this one for a couple of reasons, an Ace Mastery badge for one, and we got our first mark. We also came away with the Epic Medal High Calibre for accounting for at least 20% of the total hit point pool of the enemy team. That, of course, comes in tandem with the Fire for Effect medal. In total, we've done nearly 3,400 hit points of damage to the enemy team. We picked up these other badges of merit: Bruiser for causing damage to enemy vehicle modules or crew members at least 5 times in the course of the battle, and we picked up the Duelist medal for destroying at least 2 enemy vehicles that had caused damage to us in turn. Having a look at the team score, we just had a sensational brawl against those enemy tanks, and particularly the heavy tanks, and that's given us an XP count that's more than double the next vehicle. And that's not to take away from their achievements at all. They played to their role quite well. What we notice, however, looking at the scores, we've landed 10 of our hits here have landed on enemy vehicles that are at least a tier high. So you do collect more experience points when you're shooting at higher tier vehicles. That wasn't necessarily a choice we made. We just triaged our threats and went from there. But certainly if you're getting those penetrating hits on higher tiered vehicles, that is going to updo your experience points that little bit more. Special mention to the enemy Japanese heavies, the ONI and the OI. They played to their role quite effectively, and it was through quite a bit of luck that we were able to sort of survive in that fight for as long as we had. Just a couple of decisions either way by the enemy team could have led to quite a different fight for us there. Having a look at the detailed report, it turned out to be quite a profitable fight for us, partially due to not having to fire a lot of premium ammunition. I don't think we fired any premium ammunition that game, but then there weren't really that many situations where I thought, oh geez, I'm not going to be able to punch through this, I need to change up to premium. So that always helps when you have a gun like ARL-44's does that has an inherently high penetration value. What's also helped is most of the shots that we were taking were from either short or intermediate ranges. And as a result, we're able to hit every shot that we fired, and thanks to the penetration values and just being a little bit considerate of how we were firing, we were able to penetrate each one of those shots as well. So quite happy with that. And if you've got a result that you're happy with and you'd like to share it with the community, please reach out over Discord or any of the links below, and I'll do our best to sort you out. In the meantime, take care out there.